Welcome back, guys. I hope everyone had a good Christmas and New Year's. I feel like the holidays can be so stressful, especially if you have like toxic family dynamics or just trauma around the holidays or just honestly trauma in general. But I hope that you guys protected your peace and you enjoyed the holidays despite how triggering it can be. I actually had a fabulous holiday season myself, but I feel like it's taken years for me to have limited access to people that triggered me. I feel like it took a long time for me to really get what was happening in the holiday season and how it was making me feel, and then implement boundaries because of that. So now I feel like my holidays are chill, and when people are like, oh, I'm so stressed out to see my family, I'm just like, not me, bitch, not me. And honestly, like, there is so much pressure from society to have family close to you, even if they're toxic, which confuses the fuck out of me, because if you had friends or like a partner that were treating you the way that some people's families treat them, like that just wouldn't be acceptable and tolerable. Yet we normalize it. So if you have a chaotic family dynamic and your holidays are stressful, considering distance would be a good piece of advice, because it helped me a fuck ton. Today we're gonna talk about healthy relationships being hard as fuck, because they are. And for those of you that have been following along for a while, remember that one time I went to Texas and I dated that guy? I spoke about that relationship in such a high regard. Like, I really valued that relationship, because to me at that point it was the healthiest relationship I had ever been in. So I was constantly saying, you know, this is the healthiest relationship that I've ever been in, and that was true at the time. But now actually being in a healthy relationship, like a full-on proper healthy relationship, that one would not be considered healthy. And it's interesting what you can tolerate when you're in a situation and fully believing that it's right and fully believing that it's healthy, especially when you haven't had great comparisons. Like, for the most part, I'd say all of my relationships were very, very toxic, very tumultuous, very unhealed on both parts. Like, I was extremely unhealed. I was an addict in most of them, so I had a huge part to play in why they were dysfunctional. But in this past relationship that I'd had, we were sober for the second half of the relationship, which helped a lot. But when I reflect back on it now, after like 4 or 5 years, however long it's been, it wasn't that healthy. And there was actually like a significant amount of red flags, but I wasn't able to see it until I was out of it. I had some distance, and then I dated someone that was actually like very good for me. So I felt kind of like a fraud for a little bit. Like, I battled with that, because I was like, I told the whole internet this is such a healthy relationship. And it kind of wasn't, but it was honest in the sense that it was the healthiest I had had. So I still thought it was like amazing and should be placed on a pedestal. But now in retrospect, it is not that healthy. And I just wanted to take a minute to explain that and normalize that, because I feel like sometimes hindsight is 20/20, and we can get out of a relationship and we have these perspective shifts and we're like, how the fuck did I allow someone to treat me like this? I thought it was good. And like, it's super normal. You're human. Chill, you know? Give yourself some grace. It's okay. Because that literally just happened to me. So that was an interesting dynamic, now actually assessing it. I'm not getting into the details of it, but I had been single for the last 4 years and really took that time to like self-discover and not rely on anyone. I took a lot of intentional time of just being alone, no distractions, no dating, no nothing. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Up there with sobriety, for sure. And also up there with a healthy relationship, which we're gonna get into. But to not have distraction, I think oftentimes when we're single or we're lonely, it's easy to reach for distractions. It's easy to casually date. It's easy to sleep around. It's all these things, right? And I've done those things for sure. Don't get me wrong. I was not a fucking martyr by any means. And I lived my life. I did the things. I explored. And I felt like every time I had gotten out of a relationship in past, I would just get into another one, or I would hook up with someone, or I would do all these things. And I actually have an episode on healing after a breakup, and I advise you not to do those things, because I've done them. And I have to say, they do not help, and they make it significantly worse. So I was really intentional about how I wanted to show up for myself after this breakup. And I feel like I just was so empowered. I think you have a really cool opportunity when you get out of a relationship to rebuild yourself and have this empowering chapter of like navigating who you are. Because I think sometimes, especially in dysfunctional or unhealthy relationships, we kind of lose our sense of self. So for me, that's what this was about. It was rebuilding sense of self. And I remember leaving that relationship with so much more confidence than I'd ever left another relationship, because I had realized in healing that by losing this relationship, I wasn't losing them and me, I was just losing them. Like, I didn't lose myself in this last relationship. So that made me really proud, and it honestly made it so much easier to heal. So it's why I advocate for taking time to be alone, because the more time that you spend alone, and there's no like right number. I mean, 3 months could be a lot for someone, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it may be. But the more time you spend alone, the more like grit and resilience you build within yourself, and the more trust and assurance you have. So the less you seek external validation and you jump into things just to feel something. Because there was a lot of like deep healing, shadow work, self-discovery in these last 4 years of being single. And honestly, like, it was beautiful. It was hard. It was really hard because I had always just bounced out of something and bounced into something new and never really taken the time to like be abstinent and to just focus on myself and to not date people. Like, I was just like a fucking serial dater, which it is what it is. It's what I did. No shame to myself, but that's what it was. That's very factual. So this period of time was very different for me because I was like solo dolo for most of it. And I never knew at the beginning it would be 4 years that I would stay single for. Like, that would have scared the shit out of me, if I'm being honest. I remember even thinking I'm at least gonna take a year, no like flirting, nothing. And then it lasted a lot longer. And towards like the end of it, I did date and like hook up and do all the things and explore and travel, which was amazing too. But it was really critical for me to take that time because I had never done it before. And it was a beautiful thing. And I felt what happened to me in that time period where I was solo and alone was I began to love myself so deeply that my value in myself was rising. And then I made requirements for people to have access to me. Like, it just kept getting higher before I was like, oh, you're all right, sure. You know, like dead ass, that's how I would evaluate someone. There was no vetting. There was no, you have to bring this to the table. You have to bring this. Like, I would just be like, sure. And like I've said before in my I Think I'm Gay episode, a lot of my responses to men and reactions to men and even like dating men were reactive. They weren't necessarily like innate. Like, I wasn't just like, I want you. It was more so like someone would hit on me, take me on a date, and I'm like, you'll do. Crazy to say that now because my vetting process is insane, as it should be. But at the time, it just was very reactive. And like, I'm supposed to date a man, of course. I'm bi, but like, we live in a heteronormative world, so of course that's the easiest thing, right? So it taught me a lot about myself, and in this last year of being single, I really unpacked my sexuality. Like I said, I went to sex parties, I explored myself, I put myself in uncomfortable situations because I wanted to discover myself on a deeper level. And while that's a very beautiful process, it's really, really heartbreaking too, because you realize how many pieces of yourself were just performing or were just seeking external validation, and they weren't actually authentically you.
All right, guys, that was just a taste. The full episode, the raw, unfiltered version, is waiting for you on Patreon. This season is different. I'm talking sex parties, heartbreak, identity shifts, imposter syndrome, the shit I've never said out loud. No edits, no filters, no fluff. If you're ready to hear the full story, you know where to find me. Link is in the show notes, and I'll see you on the inside.